I long for the day when a new movie review no longer feels like some rare event. So The Little Things tells the story of a retired and an up-and-coming detective teaming up to take down a serial killer in 1990s LA. Holy shit, guys! We got a new movie to talk about. Man, it feels like this never happens anymore. The Little Things is a movie that I actually was not on my radar at all, had not heard anything about it, and then just started to see these little clips on Facebook advertising it for HBO Max, and luckily got to check out this movie early. So this is actually going to be premiering on HBO Max and in theaters on the 29th if you want to check it out, but right now I'm going to give you my early, spoiler-free review of The Little Things. So this movie brings in Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto, 3 Best Actor Academy Award winners. And that's the main selling point for this movie. And you know, when I watched the first little clip that they had on Facebook, or just scrolled past it and saw these 3 names, immediately my interest was piqued. First of all, because it's got Denzel in it, and I will watch anything with Denzel. That guy can do pretty much no wrong. Rami Malek, I absolutely loved. Bohemian Rhapsody, a lot of people say he didn't deserve the win, whatever. I enjoy the fact that he won. I loved that movie. And Jared Leto, while definitely being a little bit weird of a guy, and a guy that not necessarily everything that he does I like, he's very talented. So anytime he shows up in something, it does pique my interest a little bit. So what about The Little Things drew in 3 Best Actor winners to tell this simple throwback 90s LA murder mystery? Starting right off with the positives, I do like the kind of throwback feel to this. Obviously it's in the 90s, it's not like it's going for 80s nostalgia, it's not going all the way back to period pieces like the 60s or the 40s. It definitely has a little bit of a modern edge to it because the 90s was still very technologically sound of an era, but you do get the missing cell phones and some of the terminology that detectives are using and some of the things that they have to do that nowadays they wouldn't have to do. Definitely adds to some sort of a throwback era that I actually think works well in movies like this. Sometimes modern technology can take away a little bit of tension, can take away a little bit of the struggle, the difficulty, the main conflict of a movie like this, because back in the day they didn't have all the wonderful, easy things that it takes that we have every single day that we can use, like cell phones, like Siri and Alexa, you know, Alexa, solve this murder. And I think throwing it back to that era, which was just a little bit after like the Night Stalker killings, the Richard Ramirez stuff, it kind of gives it this seedy underbelly tone to it that I definitely think adds to a movie like this. Second, I gotta praise Denzel. Like I said, this guy can do no wrong. Even if he's in a mediocre or even a bad movie, he is always the best part about it. This guy cannot give a bad performance. I think he just wakes up and just spews charisma. I mean, I always loved this guy. He's one of my favorite actors, and I was very curious at what kind of a role this was gonna be. Is he gonna be part of the darker side of the story? Is he gonna be the main lead? And his character is really interesting because he's this really renowned detective that no longer detects. He just has a regular old deputy sheriff job. And the movie kind of sprinkles in reasons why he has done that. And there was a certain point in the movie where I actually became more fascinated with the origins of this guy and uncovering the secrets of why he's no longer this detective anymore than I was with the actual murder that we were supposed to be solving. And finally, I will give props to the fact that this movie does try to do things to subvert expectations, to stand out from the plethora of murder mysteries and detective thrillers that we have out there. It does put in the effort to do something different. Whether or not it's going to work for you is going to depend completely on you. I will talk about my feelings on that very shortly. I've talked with other people who have seen this that it was quite the opposite, so it's going to be a dividing factor, but I do like the fact that this movie has something in it to make it stand out from all of the other movies in this subgenre. As far as the mixed, I'm really just kind of torn on the 2 performances of both Rami Malek and Jared Leto. Now, I don't know if this was the way that their characters were intended to be, if this was not them kind of doing their own thing, if this was exactly how they were supposed to be and they just did their job completely. Rami Malek always felt like he was at arm's distance to me. I was fascinated and totally invested in Denzel Washington, and I was hoping that his relationship and his kind of, you know, friendship and camaraderie with Rami Malek as this young up-and-coming detective was going to kind of bleed over that interest that I have in Denzel Washington into Rami Malek. But his character just always felt a little bit stiff to me, a little bit emotionless, a little bit plastic almost. Like Denzel Washington just has so much charisma and such a well-rounded character and such an interesting story that I wanted to know more about, where Rami Malek just felt like he was playing the typical young, kind of cocky detective without all of the pop or the charisma that a character like that would have had maybe in a 90s film. Even by the end of the movie, when they're really trying to convince you that him and Denzel Washington have this great bond and they have this respect for each other and this friendship, I never really bought it. I never really bought that Denzel Washington would have any sort of feelings towards this guy as a friend or otherwise. I kind of feel like he would work with him as far as he needed to and then immediately just go back to whatever the hell he was doing before this murder came along. And speaking on Jared Leto, he feels very turned up in this movie to me. And when you have a performance that he is giving that is so turned up and is so over the top and is so scenery chewing, that to me it was almost too much. It almost strained the believability a bit for me. And whenever you get to the end of the film and they're trying to hammer home this message, I kind of feel like his performance of this character just kind of clouds whatever that message is supposed to be, to where I get to the end of the film, and mostly because of the way that his character was performed and was utilized throughout the story, I kind of found myself just scratching my head at the end of it going, what are you trying to say with this guy?
You must really like my car.
I do. How's the trunk space?
I've already touched on some of the things, but as far as an overarching negative with this film, to me, it does not do enough to stand out amongst all of the other phenomenal, best of all time films that we have in this subgenre. I mean, we have so many murder mysteries and detective thrillers that are incredible. It's not really enough anymore to throw a bunch of A-list actors into what I would call a pretty mediocre script and say, hey, we're one of the greats. It doesn't really work that way anymore. Star power doesn't sell movies. You get you into the seat maybe, but it's not really going to save you if the story doesn't have enough to keep you there. And I feel like the first two acts of this movie were very formulaic, very paint by numbers, really didn't do anything that we haven't seen a dozen times in other detective stories, other murder mysteries. And then you get to the third act where it really starts to toss in some things and subvert your expectations and go in different directions that you weren't expecting, which I liked, until you get to the resolution and I kind of went, what is that supposed to mean? What am I supposed to walk away from this movie feeling? What is that one change that you did with a typical detective story supposed to evoke in me, the viewer? If I don't know what it is, then you didn't quite do your job. And it's a shame because, I feel like there's a framework for a really cool, interesting, solid little thriller here. And for some people, it might be exactly that. But for me, for somebody that watched this film just expecting to have a pretty good movie with some great actors, I feel like I got a pretty mediocre movie with some great actors not giving near their best performances. I'll admit I was a little skeptical when I saw just the little advertisement that I saw for this and had no idea what the movie was about, but man, they were putting those names on the marquee pretty big. Denzel, Jared Leto, Rami Malek. And my first thought was, man, I hope you're not marketing this movie just off the names because you don't have a whole lot else to bring me. And unfortunately, for me personally, that kind of came to fruition. So overall, guys, The Little Things, it was a decent enough watch. It's a movie that I probably will not watch again. I didn't hate watching it. It wasn't a movie that I wanted to turn off. But for a movie that really just toes the line with detective story cliches for the first hour and a half and then tries to give you some surprises that, for me, just didn't really land at all and just ended up confusing me more than surprising me, that's a bit of an issue. So know who you are. If you love detective stories, if you love murder mysteries, and you love these actors, definitely check it out. I think it's going to be a divisive thing, whether or not you love it or whether you walk away a little bit underwhelmed like I did. But for me personally, not really a standout, not a good start for 2021. So if you guys love detective stories and these actors, definitely check this out, but temper your expectations for how many wow moments are going to be in this film and just enjoy the ride for whatever the ride is. But definitely save your money from the theaters and stream this on HBO Max. So what do you guys think of The Little Things? Let me know down below all of your thoughts whenever you do finally see this, either in theaters or on HBO Max on the 29th. Let me know if this is your favorite movie in a long time, which not very much competition, but that is at least looking up a bit for the rest of 2021. Or was this another disappointing straight to VOD type release that you kind of understand why it was straight to VOD? Let me know all of your thoughts down below on the little things. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and share this video and hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this and want to check out some more. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes. That doesn't mean that you have to be.